welcome back to Demystifying Men with yours truly, Rachel Davis. Ladies, welcome to season 2 of Demystifying Men with yours truly, Rachel Davis. I'm super honored and excited that you've decided to take this journey with me again for season 2. Now, for what we have in store for you for this season, I know for sure that you are going to not only be flat out elated and excited, but you're also going to learn a lot of wonderful content. You're going to learn a lot of concepts and principles that I feel, as well as my team collectively, that we feel would be beneficial in helping you maximize life to its fullest potential when it comes to love and relationships with men. So with that being said, let me give you a little bit of backdrop as to where we are and how we came to the theme that is going to be the reoccurring theme throughout season 2. My team and I got together early on this year after we completed the first season to think about the direction that we wanted to take Demystifying Men. So there was a lot of brainstorming. We met a lot. We, did the whole whiteboard concept. A lot of concepts came together to figure out what direction we wanted to take. But in addition to that, I also went introspectively. I fasted. I prayed. And I meditated because I wanted to make sure that the information that was going to come from this show, from this platform, would be flat out transformational for you. And the reoccurring theme that kept coming to me was kingship, kingship, kingship. And I brought it to my team. We came together and we devised a beautiful season for all of you to be able to learn what kingship is. And the reason why that's important is because throughout my coaching sessions, throughout my events, throughout social media, throughout my discovery calls, as well as the feedback that I've received from women who read my book, Demystifying Men, I found that there was a lot of women who referred to men as kings, my king this and my king that. And that's great, right? Because let's face it, there are other choice words that you can call the man in your life, or the man that you're dating, or the fact that you want to attract your king into your life if you're still single. However, what I noticed was that the men that women were referring to as kings were nothing more than jokers and paupers. And so I figured that it would be incumbent upon me to take information that I only reserve for my events, to take information that I only reserve for my high value coaching clients and bring it to you. Because when you know better, you do better. And when you know what a king looks like, when you know how a king shows up, when you know how a king loves, when you know how a king provides, when you know how a king puts legacy first and foremost, you're able to recognize that. But in addition to recognizing it, you have to know what it is in order to attract it. And so that's what this season is all about. It is about men who have achieved kingship status. Not only will you learn from me what that looks like and what it is, but we have amazing men that we scoured all over to bring to you for season 2 as we interview these men that's going to share with you exactly who they are and why they deserve to be on the show for this season from the standpoint of achieving king status. So ladies, you're going to hear from 5 amazing men who are kings in their own respective worlds so that you have an idea of not only learning the information from me, but you also can recognize what that looks like for real world men. And so that way now we can start to give the kingship title to men who really deserve it and not because we just want to give it. So with that being said, I want you to buckle your seatbelts in because ladies, you are in for an incredible ride. I promise you that. Welcome back to season 2 of Demystifying Men. All right, so let's start off by talking about characteristics of a king. All right, I think it's important for you to understand the characteristics of a king, how he moves, what his thoughts are, what his ideas and his ideologies are with regards to where he is in his life so that you can better identify a king when you meet him, or if you are currently in a relationship, determine whether or not your husband has, or your fiance has, or your significant other has achieved this level of growth and development. So First characteristic of a king is that his sense of self is crystallized. Ladies, you could stick a fork in him, he is done. He is who he is, and there isn't changing any of that. He's not going to vacillate between being someone else versus being who he is today. He's not going to vacillate back and forth and start acting like he did 10, 20 years ago and show up as someone different to you tomorrow. Who he is and his sense of self is absolutely unequivocally crystallized. And the reason why that is which brings us to point number 2, is because every experience that he's had in his life up until this point has been tried, tested, and proven for authenticity and for efficaciousness. What do I mean by that? He's lived enough life to know what he knows. He's lived enough life to be able to come to the place of knowing how his world around him is formed. And so he is who he is. He understands the way his world functions. This is the type of man who has a routine. This is the type of man who knows what he likes. This is the type of man who doesn't vacillate back and forth when it comes to life. Third point that I want to share with you about how you can identify and know the man that you have in your life, or understand to identify what a king is that everything in his life is congruent. Everything in his life is the same, to the sense that he truly has a fundamental, strong sense of self. So this brings us to our fourth characteristic of what a king is, and that is capacity. A man who has reached or achieved king status, he has the vast capacity to be able to give. Capacity in terms of giving of resources, capacity in terms of giving of advice, capacity in terms of giving love and attention and affection. Capacity in the sense of being able to provide, not have the intention of providing, not having the desire to provide, but actually having the ability to provide. The other component that you want to be mindful of in determining whether or not a man has truly achieved king status is idea of legacy. See, most men who can't think beyond, or can't function beyond, or can't concentrate beyond their present day, their present moment, their present circumstance, quite haven't achieved king status yet. Because most men who have achieved king status, they're interested in making sure that they provide from a legacy perspective. Legacy is very important to a king. Legacy is very important to a king in the sense that he prepares for his legacy. Legacy is very important to a king in terms of he's not intimidated by his legacy. And what do I mean by that? You have a lot of men who are afraid of their children taking their place. You have a lot of men who are insecure with regards to the up and coming generation coming behind them, because they feel as though those young folks are going to knock them off their perch of superiority or of stature or of substance. But a true king isn't afraid of that. A true king isn't intimidated by that. A true king relishes and welcomes the idea of legacy. And last but not least, in terms of characteristics of a king, ladies, and this is a huge one. You see, kings don't hustle, they rule. And that is a huge distinction. So if the man in your life is still hustling, and there's nothing wrong with having a hustler, and there's nothing wrong with hustling, and there's nothing wrong with doing what it is that you need to do to provide for yourself and to provide for your family and to provide for your legacy. And that's how men should grow and develop in terms of becoming their maximum ideal self. You want a man to grow and develop in terms of becoming his maximum potential, achieving the maximum capacity that he has within him to achieve. But ladies, he has arrived at kingship when he no longer has to hustle, when he can sit back and he can survey and rule his kingdom. So, doesn't mean he's not bad, doesn't mean he's not on his way. What that means is that he hasn't achieved king status yet. Again, kings don't hustle, my loves, they All right, so ladies, now that we've identified the characteristics of a king, I want to share with you some of the things that you may be doing that's counterintuitive to either A, attracting a king in your life, or B, recognizing that you have a man who actually has achieved king status. One of the mistakes that you can make when you have a king is not showing any interest in what he is offering you. Men who've achieved king status, they want to give. They relish in giving. They've acquired and achieved so much that their major desire in life right now is to be able to give. Now, let me be clear. I'm not talking about giving in terms of money or in terms of anything monetary. A man who's achieved king status isn't necessarily denoted by how much wealth he's accumulated or how much money he has in a bank account, although all that is nice. But that's not the end all be all in terms of a man who's achieved king status. When I talk about giving, I'm talking about giving of his time. And so one of the mistakes a woman makes is when he wants to give you more of his time, but you don't want it. Or he wants to give you more attention and you're not attracted by that. Or he wants to give you more of his opportunities or more access to the resources that he has, and you're pushing away, or you're pushing him away because you feel as though, you know what, I got this and I can handle this and I'm doing a phenomenal job maintaining on my own, or I don't need your help, or, I don't need your support, or here's the classic quintessential line, I don't need you in my life, I want you. But one of the things that men desire in any relationship is the need to be needed. He knows you want him, but it's important for him to know that you need him as well. Another mistake women make when it comes to having a king is not understanding that you yourself have to elevate to your queen status. Most queens I know don't have a problem receiving. You ever watch movies or time period shows like Bridgerton is a great example, where the queen would receive gifts from folks in the town that comes to see her during some sort of a celebration. Queens receive. And so many of us as women, we aren't able to attract the king that we desire because we have a hard time receiving. We have a hard time receiving feedback. We have a hard time receiving advice. We have a hard time receiving the information that a man or a king wants to provide us that will help us in terms of being able to achieve substance in our long-term goals. So I want you to understand that, again, another mistake that we make is not learning to receive. Another mistake women make is dueling positions in the household. Just because your man is the king, you don't necessarily need to be the king as well. Kings and queens don't duel in terms of positioning within the kingdom. A queen has her specific role and responsibility. A king has his specific role and responsibility. And their dueling or their feuding isn't against each other, at least not in a kingdom that is thriving and flourishing. They collectively come together to rule, to keep opposition outside of the kingdom, or to keep their kingdom flourishing, or to keep their kingdom prospering. So, another mistake, ladies, we make is dueling for position with kings in our lives, or the kings that we desire to attract in our lives. Remember, your role as a queen is not to be the king, and just because you are a queen doesn't mean you're any less powerful than the king. Just a couple of mistakes I wanted to share with all of you in terms of how to not turn away or turn off the king that we desire to have in our lives. So in closing, what I want to share with you is that he desires to give all of his attention. He desires to give all of his resources. He desires to give all of his love. He desires to give all of his affection. He desires to give everything that he has in his capacity to give. Because a true man who's a king is all about giving. They've acquired everything that they desire to acquire, and giving of themselves is where their true value lies. Another characteristic that I want you to be mindful of is that competition doesn't do well or suit well with men who've achieved king status. You have your role as a queen, he has his role as a king, and so once both roles are established, then there's harmony that can exist within the castle, thus harmony that can exist within the kingdom. And in addition to that, competition Whether it's a man who've achieved king status or not, competition with any man, as a matter of fact, creates an opportunity for friction to happen. And competition in regards to relationships only means is that he views you as himself. He views you as himself in a manner that you now become a competitor. And it is very difficult for a man to make love to his competitor. A king is a man who is complete in his development of fully evolving into the ideal masculine male that he desires to become. And last but not least, ladies, being with a king does nothing more than help encourage you to reach your highest self. And I hope you found this information very helpful. I hope you found this information impactful and above all powerful, because this is the information that's going to create the foundation for all of the guests that you're about to hear from in the next subsequent weeks. We have amazing men who've achieved king status, and I want you to hear from them firsthand, their journey, their process to getting from where they were to evolving into the king that they are today. So stay tuned till next week as we have an extra special guest share with you his story of getting to him from where he was to where he is as the first king that you'll have an opportunity to hear from. Take care, God bless, and I'll see you next week.
In the right place to move, in the right place for you.